Okay, and we're active again. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Getting a little crazy here. Okay, so, oh, I must have clicked on the wrong image. How weird is that? So I have this final image that I brought in. When you have an image that you brought in, you get these things around the edges. Anybody know what those are called? For a sucker! Go.
Changers.
No, but good try.
Change boxes.
Not even. They're circles. What are you talking about?
Circle changers.
No! What do you hold on to when you ride a bike?
Modifiers.
Handles.
Handles! They're all handles to grab. Yeah, like, I can't tell who said it. And I gave you a big clue anyway.
Good me.
So, you have these handlebars that you can grab and move and manipulate to change the size if you need to. There are various things that you can do with clip art. Probably the easiest ones are to go ahead and use your formatting palette in the toolbox and just make the changes that way. You can right-click on it and you can go to Format Picture, and then that brings up a whole dialog box of more stuff that you can do. This is very similar then to what you can do in Google Drawings, so you'll see some very big similarities there. I'm just going to show you some simple ones. Obviously to crop, like there's not a lot to crop out of this, but I could maybe make it a little bit smaller. So to crop, I'm going to click on this top one and then just drag this down and get rid of some of that white space. You can see if you crop too much, there it cut off half of my books. I don't want that much, so I can undo. A cool one, who did I, oh maybe it was a 7th grader I showed this to yesterday. Never mind. Let's go ahead and say though I have an image in the background. That will just show you what I'm talking about here. And I'm going to draw this shape in. And then I want to move this picture over the top of that shape. Oh my gosh, it's not moving. What do I need to do to get that to move?
You need to wrap it.
You need to wrap it. Come get your sucker. Okay, so wrapping is like, if you think of the little dog, that'll help you remember it. That's what the icon looks like. So when you have your image selected, it is actually an option in the toolboxes to wrap it. And then when you wrap, either tight or square are usually your best bets. When you are in Google Drawings, you can tell it to move out of line with text. There's 2 other ones, like break text. And sometimes I found if I move to one of those and then go back to the other one that I originally had, it'll format it much nicer. But Word actually does a much better job of formatting and moving. So now I can move this thing wherever I want, and I could put it like on top of here. But one problem when I put this on top of here, what is that?
The white still shows.
Yeah, the white still shows, and that's really bad. So I can click on this transparent color, and it's kind of like a magic wand. So you get to be a fairy godmother for just a moment. I call it a magic wand because it kind of looks like a wand. But bippity-boppity-boo, you make the white disappear, or whatever color you want to make disappear. And so now it looks like you have this clear image. And again, this was one I just grabbed from Clipart online when I was talking about books. Could I do the same thing with the transparent color with a different color? Sure. Any reds that I have, I could click on that red, and it makes anything that had that tone of red disappear. Can you see that? It goes to, like you can see the blue coming through. So it's a little bit not as good with that, but it works much better like with the white, or if you have any circles in the background, things like that, it gets rid of it. Also, what you can do with pictures, I'm going to just move this over again to show you. You can add some different effects to those pictures. And so a simple one is to add a little border around it. That must be a big border. Let's add a little border. There you go. That's not so bad. And it made my transparency obviously go away because it overrode that. If I want to add some glow to it, let's add a little orange glow, and so on and so forth. So you can do fairly simple edits that are going to make quite a bit of a difference with just simple clip art. If you need to make something have a shadow, obviously you can just tell it to put a shadow on, how much you want the angle of the shadow to be, and it will add that shadow to this document, or to this picture, excuse me. I'm going to undo that. If I wanted to add a reflection to this, all I have to do is check reflection, and then it adds it. I only teach you this because you're not going to go over this in the book, but you are definitely going to have this as something on your test. That is a requirement that you need to do. And then you can't come back and say, but we never learned how to, because this is it. And it'll be recorded, so I'll send it to all of you if you want it. Questions about clip art? It's fairly straightforward. It's just that knowing you have some enhancements that you can do and then getting them offline or online to make them an offline document. Make sure you get ones that are legal to use. Footnotes and citations. Honest to goodness, I had one class in my master's degree where I had to create footnotes for something. I do know if you go into the sciences, they like footnote stuff a lot. So if you are a person that's going to major in something science-y in college, you will probably be using footnotes a lot. Otherwise, most of the time you use MLA citation and you create a bibliography or works cited page at the end. But like I said, I had one class that I took during my master's, and this is like all of my years of schooling, that I had to create footnotes. And so this actually came in very handy, knowing how to do this, and it sticks them in there automatically for you. Headers and footers are no-brainer. The only thing that I think is no-brainer about them, that should be brainer about them, is you cannot go to Insert and Headers and Footers. It's under the View menu. So if you go to View and Headers and Footers, it's there. And I believe Google Drive has the same thing available, but not with footers, only with headers, and it's kind of a weird thing. You can also access your headers and footers, though, by having your cursor up toward the top of your document, and notice how the cursor changes, so you can access it that way as well. And then borders and shading. Make sure you know if you're adding a page border or if you are adding a paragraph border. So I'm going to go ahead and type some text here. Hopefully you will learn the difference between page borders and paragraph borders by looking at this. Okay. Oh, wrapping is weird. Let's move this stuff down. Okay. So if I have this text right here and my cursor's in this area, it's important to know we're not talking borders in your toolbox, because that is just going to do a paragraph border. If you go to Format, Borders and Shading, notice there are two selections at the top. Well, there's three actually, but there's one that says Borders, there's one that says Page Borders. If you just choose Borders and you put a box around it, and let's make it a big fat line so you can see what's going on, and I click OK, it just puts it around the paragraph. Gonna undo that. If I go to Borders and Shading again, that's Format, Borders and Shading. If I want a page border, I could go choose that exact same one. Where's that candy cane thing? Here it is. And click OK, and it's going to put it around the whole page. Now that is really a boring border. Shame on you if you make a boring looking document. So if you're going to put on a page border, go big or go home. I would get a page border and at least use some artwork on it. And you don't have to use anything corny of artwork or anything unless you're way into that. You know, like if I were going to be an elementary teacher, I would put artwork on everything I did. Because little kids, they love to see crap like that. I think even high school kids would probably stop and read some of those memos that are out there if people made them visually appealing. So maybe I'll put some lightning bolts because the wrath of Mrs. Bauermeister's godliness is coming down on you. I don't know. There you go. So adding a page border, and I'll show you the whole page here, whole page. Just be aware that you don't go out of your margins with stuff, because otherwise, like, it defaults to go over the top, and it looks kind of weird. So make sure you're aware of that. Questions about borders, page borders? And then the last one is working with themes. I very rarely use themes in my real life, but I think it's important that you do know they are there. Themes are quite literally under this tab in the formatting palette that says Document Theme. Make sure you know the difference between the actual document theme, the color theme, and the font theme. So when I hover over the top of this, it tells me this one is Advantage. If I scroll down, it tells me this one is Perspective. This one is Paper. By the way, they're in alphabetical order. The color themes tell you the names of them on the side. Some of them are similar, which I think is way confusing. Generally, though, I just choose the basic one. But you could change it so like focus is the font theme. So then when you go to choose your fonts, or your font color, excuse me, notice that these changed. These aren't the standard ones that are usually there. And that's because I went and changed the theme to, what did I change it to? Yeah, here it is, focus. The X is on, or the check mark is by that. The font theme, those are the ones that would default to come into. So you can choose. Notice their names are at the top of those though, not like Verdana is not it. It's called Aspect is the name of the theme. So if you scroll through those again, they are in alphabetical order. I could read the one that's called Saddle, and the font for that is Book Antiqua. Or like Precedent has 2 different fonts that it has set for it. Make sure when you do the themes, you do them in the order that the directions tell you, or it's going to be messed up. Unit H practice pages. Make sure you are aiming to have those done by next Monday. Now, Unit H itself is not due until Thursday of next week. But you will be having other assignments going on in there, like what is due. Unit G. You have Unit G practice pages to do. So that should be your focus right now, is getting those Unit G practice pages done and then the assignments. There are 3 Unit G assignments as well. Any questions? Alrighty, time is all yours then.